A long time ago, when digital photography wasn't more than a dream, Nikon made one of their most celebrated film SLR cameras. The FM2 was built like a tank and its fully mechanical shutter didn't need battery power. It was also a handsome camera that still sells for serious bucks. So when Nikon decided to make a digital, retro-styled, mirrorless camera, it had to look exactly like the famous FM2. The Nikon Z FC is not built like a tank and sports only a crop sensor that does require a lot of battery power, but the same as its grandfather from the film era, also the ZFC is deceptively good in how it handles, how good the interface is, and most of all in the quality of images it makes. But there is one major problem that comes with buying this camera, and in this video I will share with you my solution. Now I can hear you asking what makes this camera so good? Several things actually. On the first glance it looks like a Fujifilm clone with an Nikon badge on it. It's small, coated in silver and black and covered with retro buttons and dials. We have seen this before. Fujifilm has been making digital cameras like this for more than a decade. But then you start playing with the ZFC and a couple of things slap you straight in the face. The styling is simply beautiful. This is not a Nikon versus Fuji video, so I will leave that comparison to you, but the ZFC can hold its own ground in the looks category against anything out there, at least in the silver version. If you get this in black, you are doing yourself a disservice. I mentioned the camera is not built like a tank. What it means is that the ZFC doesn't weigh much. It feels lighter than you would expect, but somehow that's not to the detriment of the feeling you have when using it. The build is nice and adequate to the price point. I like that the body is slightly wider as it makes it easy to hold despite having no grip, but I would still recommend getting the lightweight grip from Smallrig and also one of the cheap thumb supports from Amazon. The ZFC handling and the security of operation will improve exponentially. We all like when a camera has a good heft to it, when it's a good paperweight. Our brain is wired to sense quality when something gives our hands that hefty feeling. But the Nikon ZFC reminded me that low weight can be an advantage when design and craftsmanship are done right. But the biggest surprise of the camera design was when I looked into its viewfinder. I'm used to seeing small and inferior EVF on a small consumer-grade camera, but Nikon did well here with the ZFC. The EVF is bigger and feels nicer to look into than I was expecting. It's certainly better than what Fujifilm have put in the XS20. Nikon's EVF has longer eye point and higher magnification, the two attributes that matter a lot more than resolution, which is the same for both cameras by the way. Yeah, it's not a comparison video, but I can't stop comparing the ZFC to the behemoth of retro-style digital cameras. One difference is that Nikon decided to make the ZFC with both the retro dials that control exposure triangle and also the PASM selector. I've seen some hate online coming from traditional camera design purists saying that Nikon should make up their mind and what is the point of PASM when you have dials. So let me tell you, dear purist, for one, the traditional dials look pretty good and made the camera a lot less suspicious when used on a busy street. I had people coming over pointing at the ZFC saying that they still have one of these at home from the times they were taking film photos of their family decades ago. That's how good of a job Nikon did here. The dials are also a reminder that we can flip the PASM into manual and quickly and comfortably control the exposure triangle without needing to dive into the menu, which can be useful for slower work like landscape photography. But the best thing about the PASM selector is that it has an extra setting called Auto. This one is for those occasions when you ask a stranger to take a photo of you with your camera. Just switch it to Auto and show that nice person the shutter button. They will not need to focus and recompose, adjust aperture or think about anything else but fitting you and your family on the screen. And the ZFC autofocus is so fast that you won't even have to explain, they first have to half press for focus. The last camera I owned that had this switch was the excellent Fujifilm X-E3. I've got some great honeymoon shots of my wife and I purely thanks to this feature. But I digress, you wanna hear about the big problem and its solution, and I'm almost there, you just need to hear this first. Nikon colors are amazing. Even from this crop sensor 20 megapixel camera, just look at these unadjusted RAW files, they are so good because the colors are real. And that's a great starting point for editing. Of course I had a go at them and all the photos showcased in this video have been adjusted, but I didn't need to do much and some of them I left alone and just exported the JPEG. The quality of Nikon's RAW files got me thinking. You hear all about the Leica colors and Canon skin tones and Sony dynamic range, but then you pick up this lowly retro sidekick from Nikon and realize it punches way above its price tag. I mean, have you seen how much is the ZFC going for refurbished directly from Nikon? That is a steal if you ask me. Despite the elephant in the room. The problem the Nikon ZFC has is something no camera should have to deal with. As of today, there is only one native Nikon crop sensor prime lens available. It's the Nikkor 24mm f1.7, and it's what I've been using on my ZFC. It's bonkers, I know. The only other option from Nikon stable is a set of zooms, but in my head those fit better on the other, more modern stylized crop sensor Nikon cameras. If you will get the ZFC, you will want a prime lens. At least the one they have is pretty good. Full frame equivalent of 36 is perfect for reportage, street, travel, family and general creative photography, and it doesn't matter the lens aperture max is out at f11, and it's a classic plastic fantastic design, including the mount. The ZFC is light and needs a light lens, and it's the glass that makes the photo, not a hardened plastic outer body. Still, one 35mm lens is not enough, we need more, and I can hear you Fujifilm users laughing out loud. Bear with me, Fujifilm lenses will play a role in the solution. But let's take it from the most obvious. Nikon has a selection of full-frame Z-mount lenses. Some are good, some are up there with the best, but like any other full-frame lenses, they are either big and heavy, or their aperture starts way higher than what we would like for our small crop sensor camera. And then there is the dreaded crop factor. 28mm becomes 40, and that's about all that can be useful. Even the only 35mm f1.8 full-frame lens is too big and heavy for the nimble ZFC, so you can forget a fast 50, at least from Nikon. And here comes Sigma with their trio of fast primes. These have been issued for almost every brand out there, so you have probably seen them. I'm using the 16mm to record this video right now, and the 30 f1.4 is the one that will be most useful for casual photography with the ZFC. Although it's not exactly 50, it's a 45mm lens, that's how Sigma does it. Viltrox has a good selection of autofocus lenses for Z-mount cameras, but even those made for the ZFC are quite large and will throw the setup out of balance. But I do like the look and size of the new 20 f2.8, so if you need a lens that is wider than the native 24, this can be a good choice. TT Artisan also has two autofocus Z-mount lenses. I have tried the 28 f2.8 into Fuji X mount, but the 32 f2.8 is also looking good. Then there is Voigtlander, who have been busy releasing great manual focus lenses for the Nikon Z mount. Their lens selection is decent, and if you are into manual focus, this is your homeland. And if these are too expensive, 7 Artisans have a good Z mount lens selection for a lot less money. But manual focus is not for everyone. But don't worry if it sounds all doomy and gloomy. The biggest help often comes in unexpected ways, and the biggest help for Nikon crop sensor camera shooters can come from Fujifilm. The giant of digital crop sensor cameras and lenses has recently opened their lens protocols, and the icebergs started to melt. This has not only allowed third-party lens manufacturers to make lenses for Fujifilm, but it's now also possible to use genuine Fujifilm lenses on Nikon Z cameras by using the first Fujifilm X2 Nikon Z mount autofocus adapter. It has just been released, and what's even better, it looks super thin and will not weigh anything. Imagine the possibilities. The compact Fujifilm lenses, each with aperturing on the small and capable Nikon ZFC. The rendering of the great Fujifilm glass combined with the Nikon colors while keeping your setup small and light. When I discovered this FXZ adapter, it literally made my day. I have been trying to find a dealer here in UK, but it looks like I will have to buy it directly from China and wait a month or so for it to arrive. I really want to see how the magical Fujinon 35 f1.4 lens works on the surprisingly capable Nikon ZFC. It's something to look forward to, but if you can't wait, check out this video next, where I review the TT Artisan 27 f2.8, a crop sensor packing Nikon Z mount autofocus lens that will feel like home on your ZFC.